Hello again guys, and welcome back to another Big Al Devlin video here at the House of Devlin. And today's video is going to be a sort of, again, another heavy political video, I suppose, or discussion video. I'm trying to focus it as an extension of my feminism videos that I've been filming, and about how there's not equality amongst all women within this country that I live in, the UK. I can't comment on other countries because, of course, I live in the UK. I don't live in America. I don't live in Europe. So this is my discussion on equality between the genders in the UK. Okay. Now, obviously, the previous feminism videos that I've filmed have been based upon my paganistic viewpoints as a sort of I've used that as a sort of point of starting the discussion that in paganism, for example, men are seen as being equal to women, and vice versa. There's complete equality, but there are also differences, and those differences are celebrated. Men and women can do exactly the same stuff as one another if they want, but men typically want to do different things that women want to do, and women typically want to do different things than each other, and that was recognized in paganism, and there was no shame seen as wanting to just be normal, to be for a bloke to be a bloke, or if the bloke wanted to do womanly things, there was no shame in that either, really, in many respects. He just wants to go do that. Okay, he's part of that, whatever, it doesn't matter. We're all equal, and we all have equal choices and opportunities. And as I say, if the opportunity arises that you just simply want to do something that is in stereotypically a woman's job, like, for example, a nurse or something. I mean, I don't mean that, because there's a lot of male nurses, a lot of good nurses, but most men, when they hear nurse, they think, or most people, when they hear the word nurse, think of a female. And if a man wants to go become a nurse, he's providing a superb contribution to society, and I applaud him. If you are a male nurse, then thank you, because, having suffered myself only a few years ago from a serious car accident, there were a few male nurses that looked after not only myself but also my girlfriend, and I didn't give a shit whether you were a man or a woman. I didn't give a flying shit. But society kind of does. Society goes, what, you're a nurse and you're a man, and they kind of break your balls over it, right? And that's wrong. But it does exist. But there should be 100% equality between both genders, and the typical differences between men and women should exist. But if a man wants to do something that is stereotypically seen as a woman, he should have no shame in doing so. And same with women. If women want to do something that's typically, a manly job, like, I don't know, drive an articulated lorry, as long as she does a good job as a man, as any other, as all the other, or if she does a better job than all the other male applicants for the job, for example, of course she should be allowed, and she shouldn't be, looked at and thought, wow, she's a bit weird, I bet she's lesbian, which is what most people think. No, she shouldn't. She should be allowed to fulfill that role in society, because that's obviously what her skill set, her talent, or her passion for lorries and or driving are. She's just trying to make money to put food on the table and to keep the lights on, so to speak. That's all she's trying to do. Same thing with a man, as I say. However, as I say, the majority of men will do manly things, or stereotypical manly things, and the majority of women will do stereotypically female things. However, as I say, this video, I'm trying to keep it as focused as I can, because I do digress, I do waffle sometimes, and I think sometimes that's good, because it does get us discussing other points that need to be discussed, or certainly highlights to me things that need to be discussed in other videos. But really, what I wanted to focus this video on is the fact that even though in Western society there is 100% equality between the genders, what I've described there does exist. Socially, you're allowed to do all this. Yes, okay, individuals, as I say, may break your balls, as I say, if you're a male nurse and all the rest of it, but the authorities, the people in charge, people who matter in that sense, they don't stop you. They allow you to do it, and you have the same chances of promotion and that as any female in that position would have. And so good for you. Okay, so it's good that we live in Western society. Western society has seemed to have developed standards that existed over 1,000 years ago. In fact, ancient paganism, as I say, originated, or certainly definitely 100% existed in the Ice Age. And the Ice Age ended 10,000 years ago, but it started a lot longer before then. So we could be looking at a religion that is not only, well, at the very least 10,000 years old, but probably 30, 40,000 years old. It's a little bit of speculation there for myself, but nonetheless, what I'm trying to say is this paganism as a whole is a very old religion. And how interesting is it that the old ways got it right from the word go? They got it right from the word go. How amazing is that? I think it truly is. I think that primitive man and primitive woman, as we would describe them today, were not so primitive after all. They understood society. They understood that working together, especially when you consider the fact during the Ice Age humanity was an endangered species, working together doesn't matter what role you play in it, but whatever talents you have, working together is the best way to survive, to thrive, and to prosper. Okay? And having, sort of a man ego and going, well, I'm not taking orders off a woman, or whatever, if that woman happens to be more knowledgeable on a particular subject than you, well, no, screw you. She knows what she's talking about. Do what she says. And people did in ancient, as I say, in ancient paganism. They for example, one typical example is Boudica, sometimes known as Boudicca. She was a queen of the Iceno tribes, I believe it was, which was one of the British. Why do I struggle with saying the word British? It's my lisp, so do forgive me if it comes out and you're like, I wonder what he said there. It's Britain. Okay, it's one of the tribes of Britain, ancient Britain, around the time when the Romans invaded, and she basically lost her husband to the Romans, and she became queen of the Iceni tribe. Now, let me make this clear. There was no issues with her being queen, even though this was 2, 3, maybe 3.5 hours, I don't know the exact time, but roughly about 2,000 to 3,000 years ago. Despite being such a long time ago, the people, the men and the warriors, essentially, the men underneath her, followed her into battle without hesitation because she was very fierce, and and they believed in her. They didn't want to think, well, I'm not following a woman, as would a lot of cultures back then. They'd be like, well, I'm not following a queen. Not unless she gets married and has, and has a king in her life. I'll follow the king, but I'm not following a queen. These ancient peoples had it right from the word go. And it's interesting that modern society has taken so long to get to this point where there is equality. Because during the Industrial Revolution, for example, during the 1800s and early 1900s, equality did not exist. Equality, in its true sense as we experience it now, between the genders and between individuals from all walks of life, really is a very modern concept. It's really only been really for a couple of decades at most, really, that it's been accepted. In the UK, one of the leading countries for this kind of thing, we've always been socially beyond a lot of other countries who would consider themselves civilised. However, I do feel that our values are being eroded to some degree, and it's nice to see, as I say, the pagan way sort of finding its way back into modern society. That's fantastic. I don't give a shit whether people essentially call themselves pagan or not, but if they act with the pagan sort of morals and ethics behind them, then surely that makes them pagan, I suppose. It'd be nice for them to label themselves as pagan, but I know converting a country is probably not going to happen. But as I say, what problem what I have is that there is an erosion of these values that the British people have fought very, very hard for over the last 150 years. We fought very hard for it, and when I say we, I actually mean women more so than men. Some men fought very hard for it. Some men supported their wives, and there was a lot of men obviously within the House of Lords and House of Commons and that obviously did their best to bring equality for women into the system. But it was really the actions of women, the suffering of women that brought it along. And it's a shame to see all that suffering, all that hardship, all that discussion, all that sort of advancement back to essentially the old ways in that sense, for it to be all eroded away, or gradually being eroded away. And that's because currently in England at the moment we live in a multicultural society, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having different cultures living together. It's interesting learning about what other people of other cultures think and believe, because it can expand your mind. They might see the world in a way and go, oh, okay, that's interesting. Now, obviously, I'm pretty set in my own belief systems, my own way and thought ways of thinking and all the rest of it. But most of the time, people find my belief system, paganism, to be very interesting, and they sit down, they genuinely listen. I can see they're genuinely thinking, actually, that's a pretty good way of life. As I say, people are embarrassed in this country, in my personal opinion, apart from maybe the younger generations where it's more of a sort of a fashionable thing to label yourself as it. But general adults like myself who are in their 30s, most adults I think are embarrassed or worried about what society would think of them if they labelled themselves as pagan. It's a right old shame, because there's nothing to be ashamed of. It's a religion, just like Christianity, just like Islam, just like just like Judaism, Buddhism, so on and so forth. It's a religion, it's a belief system, and if you want to follow the path of your ancients, your ancestors, that's a pretty good path to follow, in my opinion, because it at least pays respect to your ancestors, if nothing else. As I said, paganistic society, as you've seen, was quite advanced for its time. It was equal, really, to how it is now, in many respects. In the religious belief system, if we followed paganistic religious belief systems, and used that as a guide to regards how we run a country, or how I don't mean economically and all the rest of it, but how we run the sort of people side of politics, how to handle people, how to handle societies, and stuff like that, then, to be honest, this country would be better off. It would be significantly better off. It would be much more harmonious, 100%, if a lot of the sort of people of European heritage just decided one day, I'm going to go back to my roots. Or people who, have no genuine European heritage, who come from the Middle East or Africa or anything, like, go, actually, that is their way of thinking is right. That way of thinking is a beautiful way of thinking. It's respectful of nature. It's respectful of humanity. I want a part of that, and as long as they committed to it in the same way as, say, I do, and all the rest of it, and as, say, anyone else who joined the religion, then of course it'd be a wonderful thing to have. To call Britain, or Albion as its old name is, we'd call it pagan once more. It's a long step getting there. It's a long step getting there. And I'm running out of battery power, so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to end this video here. I'm going to put my phone in charge, I'm going to upload this video, and it's just going to be described as in the title. I don't even know, I don't even know what I'm going to call this video, because I haven't really talked about much. It's just been a discussion. It's just been about society as a whole. But then I'll do a second video, as I say, where I feel that there are subsections of our culture over here in the UK that are eroding the rights that we have fought so hard to have, or the women of this country have fought so hard to have. And that I find to be unacceptable. And I may get in trouble for even bringing it up, because it does involve religion, and a predominant religion that exists in this country. But I am not doing it to incite hatred in any way whatsoever. I feel no hate whatsoever. I just simply want change. I want a recognition that there needs to be a change. I don't know exactly what it is. I can give some guidelines, but I'm just a man with a camera. I'm not a politician. How can I make a difference? The only way I can make a difference is by getting you guys to listen. And maybe you guys can then get other people to listen. And if enough people listen, then changes might occur. Right, thanks guys. I'm just going to charge up my battery, and I'll be with you in just a minute.